They were forced to leave everything behind: their homes, their routines, even their sense of belonging. But they never let go of their hope. At World Refugee Day 2025 in Kigali, Rwanda, this year's message was clear.
Solidarity with refugees is not just a theme, it is a call.
I wrote a letter to my boss, say, hey boss, I think I'm leaving. I'm not doing what I was created for.
In Rwanda we have 212 staff. Out of those, 36 are refugee staff.
Because everyone deserves a home, a future, and a place to belong.
Refugees bring a lot to the diversity of the countries that host them.
In this edition of In Focus, the full story awaits, only on EAMG TV.
Your gateway to East Africa.
Displacement is no longer a humanitarian issue. It's a development issue, it's a security issue, and above all, it's a human issue. Africa hosts over 36 million displaced people, each with a name, a story, and a dream still fighting to be realized. Behind every refugee is a voice, and at the World Refugee Day 2025, those voices took front and center. Today on In Focus, our spotlight is on the just wrapped World Refugee Day 2025 that took place for the first time here in Kigali, Rwanda, at the Kigali Convention Center. I am Amanda Bahenda, the voice you trust, the insight you need, and let's unpack the moments that mattered.
I'm very honored to welcome you all to the 2025 World Refugee Day commemoration here in Rwanda. Thank you for being here in solidarity. Today, as we mark World Refugee Day, we pay tribute to the courage, the resilience, and hopes of millions of women, men, and children who have been forced to flee their homes, whether from conflict, persecution, disaster, or violence. This year's theme, Solidarity with Refugees, is not just a theme, it is a call to conscience, a call to action, a call to remember our shared humanity. We gather at a time when forced displacement globally has reached record levels. From the protracted crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in South Sudan and Syria, to the ongoing tragedies in Gaza, Sudan, and Ukraine, and the devastating ripple effect of climate-related displacement across the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, the need for global solidarity has never been more urgent. Against all this backdrop, Rwanda stands out as a country that not only shelters, but do include. With over 135,000 refugees, primarily from the DRC and Burundi, and as a partner in innovative solutions like the emergency transit mechanism for refugees that we evacuate from Libya, Rwanda continues to demonstrate what meaningful solidarity looks like in action. In Rwanda, doors are not just open, they are kept open. Refugees have here access to national services like health and education, the right to work and to move freely, and now more pathways to tertiary education, to jobs, and to financial inclusion. Later today, we will have stories that speak to the power of inclusion and how refugees can contribute meaningfully when they are given the chance. Let me take this moment also to express our sincere appreciation to Access to Finance Rwanda, not only as a co-sponsor of today's event, but as a key partner advancing refugee financial inclusion. Today, Access to Finance in Rwanda will share important findings from the FinScope 2024 thematic report on refugees' access to finance. These are insights that are critical as we work together to break down the barriers and ensure that all people, regardless of their status, can fully participate in economic life and contribute to national development. But Rwanda and countries like it, who shoulder the responsibility of hosting refugees, often with limited resources, Rwanda cannot and should not do this alone. Solidarity means more than empathy. It means support. It means responsibility sharing. It means honoring the international commitments we have made, from the Global Compact on Refugees to the Sustainable Development Goals, and localizing those commitments here in Rwanda. This year, as geopolitical tensions rise and funding for humanitarian needs fall sharply, we risk failing the very people who most need our help. Solidarity must remain a compass guiding our response. Let us not allow compassion fatigue, political convenience to erode our principles. To the development actors, to donors, government leaders, private sector partners, civil society, international financial institutions, all present here today, I say thank you. Thank you for showing your solidarity through action. Your efforts, despite global aid cuts and rising needs, are essential. Let us continue to work hand in hand to strengthen inclusion, to expand local opportunities, and seek lasting solutions for displaced communities. To the refugee communities here with us today, we see you, we hear you, and we stand with you. You are not forgotten, you are not alone. To the youth and to the refugee-led organizations here today as well, your presence gives us hope. Across the country, we see young refugees leading in education, entrepreneurship, climate action, arts and technology. Refugee-led initiatives are building bridges, solving problems, and lifting communities from within. Your voices, your ideas, your leadership, they are not only part of the solution, they are the solution. We stand in solidarity with you, and we will keep creating spaces for you to thrive. Let us also recognize the unsung heroes, the host communities, the frontline responders, and the humanitarian workers who continue to give their all, even in the most fragile contexts. Your commitments keeps hope alive. Friends, World Refugee Day is not just about a symbolic gesture once a year. It's about how we show up every day. It's about how we welcome. It's about how we advocate. It's about how we design our policies and build our communities. Together, we can create a world where every refugee feels safe, included, and valued. Let us build communities that reflect the very best of humanity: compassion, justice, and solidarity. Let us stand with refugees, not just today, but every day. Thank you to the government of Rwanda, through the ministry in charge of emergency management, for your important leadership and making this day possible. Murakoze cyane.
It is a great honor for Access to Finance Rwanda to join you today as we stand in solidarity with millions of people around the world who have been forced to flee their home countries in search of safety, dignity, and the opportunity to pursue their dreams. Today, we commend the government of Rwanda for its steadfast commitment to providing a safe and dignified environment for refugees, enabling them not just to survive, but to thrive. We all understand that when individuals leave their countries of origin, they are not merely looking for shelter. They are in search of inclusive communities that welcome them, integrate them, and provide opportunities for their growth and resilience. Refugees may leave behind their homes, but they carry with them their skills, knowledge, dreams, and ambitions. When they are not seen as burden, as he just mentioned, but as partners, and when they are given the opportunity, they contribute meaningfully to the socio-economic development of their host communities. The Finscope Survey 2024, Refugees Financial Inclusion Thematic Report, we are launching today, offers valuable insights into how refugees in Rwanda are interacting with the formal and informal financial services. Since 2008, the Finscope survey has been conducted every 4 years to assess the levels of financial inclusion across Rwanda. Our most recent national survey, published in June last year, revealed that 96% of adult Rwandans now have access to financial services. The thematic report that is being presented today is part of a series of focused studies or deep dive following that main indicators report, exploring how specific segments of the population or sectors engage with financial services. Importantly, this marks the first time a report has been developed to examine how refugees access and use financial services in Rwanda. Ladies and gentlemen, a study concluded by AFR in 2018, which was entitled Refugees and Their Money, the Financial Lives of Refugees in Rwanda, clearly showed that refugees were actively engaged in economic activities, just like members of the host communities, but lacked access to a broad range of financial services. Whatever financial services they were accessing was mostly cash transfers that were done monthly for their survival. Their financial behaviors demonstrated a clear need for formal financial solutions to help them manage and grow their businesses and improve their livelihoods. In response, in 2019, AFR partnered with the Ministry of Emergency Management, Minema, Umutangwa Finance Company, and MTN Rwanda to implement a project aimed at expanding access to formal and innovative financial solutions for both refugees and their host communities. As a result, Umutangwa Finance Company established dedicated branches. I think for those that visit Mahama, you might see some of those outlets in refugee camps, enabling refugees and residents to save money, access credit, and obtain financial services without the burden of long travels. I recall when we were setting that outlet in Mahama camp, refugees themselves, which is a very important point to really ponder on, you know, we discussed with them. They said, you know what? Yes, a branch here is good in the camp, but we need Umutangwa branch in Kabarondo. Then we said, why? They said, because that's where we source our goods when we are trading here. And because Mutangwa is pro-refugees and they understand how they can serve us, we want actually to go there and find our money there. We don't want to travel with cash. And that was very interesting. And Mutangwa did it, and we supported them. As you will soon hear from the report, refugees in Rwanda now have comparatively high access to financial services, particularly digital and transaction account, a truly remarkable development since 2019. We commend the government of Rwanda for its effort to integrate refugees and asylum seekers into the national identity system, a key enabler for their access to banking and other formal financial services. In closing, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to the ministry in charge of emergency management and UNHCR for their strong collaboration in the production of this thematic report. Since the questionnaire was launched and really allowing access to the camp and interacting with refugees so that we understand how we can serve better. We also acknowledge with appreciation the support of our partners, the MasterCard Foundation, the government of Sweden, Luxembourg Agency for Development Cooperation, LuxDev, Jersey Overseas Aid, the National Bank of Rwanda, and the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda, and the Rwanda Bankers Association. This year, World Refugee Day calls us to stand in solidarity with refugees, not just through statements, but through meaningful actions. To the refugee community in the room, you are not alone. We know your needs, and we remain committed to working with you as partners to support your improved access to meaningful financial products and services, your self-reliance, and economic empowerment. Murakoze cyane. Thank you.
No moment was more personal than the words of Mr. Mondiat Dogon, a refugee turned author, advocate, and founder of the Mondiat Initiative. He fled the war at the age of 14, and years later he's standing on a global stage, not to ask for help, but to lead it. His story is one of the many that shaped this year's World Refugee Day.
I was a child who grew up in refugee camp in northern part of Rwanda, refugee camp called Gihembe. That's where I grew up. I remember when I was 3 years old, I got there. It was white, blue tent with the UN Refugee Agency logo, and also red dust. I remember going to school for the first time. It was under the tree. We didn't have classrooms. Guess what? Now, I went to one of the best schools in the country, like NYU, New York University. And I couldn't be able to go there if I didn't have your hand. So thank you so much. Yeah, the refugee camp I grew up, Gihembe, and then later now Mahama, which now I belong. I'm still a refugee there, but I live in New York, one of the best places in the world, and I love the city. It's called the city that never sleeps. And I think because we are trying to find a solution, we as the team or everybody who is in the room, I think that will be also our mission. But when I grew up in that refugee camp, the refugee camp, I learned a lot of things. Now, kind of those negative whatever for the book we read or media we see or TV we watch, but there was a lot of opportunities. I think if I didn't kind of come to be able to learn all those kind of things, I wouldn't be able to kind of give back or do the work Mondi Initiative is doing. So the refugee camp or the place I grew up, I told you about, which is Gihembe, it was a place defined not about its boundaries, but its resilience. The people are very resilient in those places. A child raised among, as I said, rows of white tent, green and blue tent, and for many years was the only home I knew. In that place, fragile, forgotten, yet full of life, I learned that even in the absence of everything, hope is something that we can still carry. And I remember when I want to share you about my personal story. I grew up there. I went to University of Rwanda. And then I got a chance through the support of the U.S. Embassy. I really appreciate. I see the team from the U.S. Embassy. That time was Erika Bagos, and when 2 weeks ago I met Ambassador Eric, a U.S. ambassador. I see my friends Manikishi and also Taylor Amber. They're here. Before I got the opportunity, I was the first refugee in Rwanda to go to America as an international student, not as somebody who is resettled. So that was the beginning of new hope. That was the beginning of, seeing people, hey, somebody who grew up in Gihembe now going to America, going to the best city in the world, New York City. So, and then when New York City was the epicenter of COVID in 2020, I decided to come home, and my family was still living in refugee camp. I flew back, I packed my bag, I left my apartment in Manhattan. Some of you, I think you know New York City. I was living downtown Manhattan. And then I left the city, I packed my bag, I flew back to Rwanda, Kigali. I was working at one of the biggest kind of tech company, Yahoo, which later on came Auth, and now it's called Verizon Media in America. So I got my laptop, I went to MTN, I bought my router, I got my laptop, and then I worked from home. My family was still living in Gihembe. So I was working at one of the biggest tech company in America, but living or staying in Gihembe. So I stayed in Rwanda for 9 months. And then I got a chance to travel or refugee camp to meet these talented, very brilliant young people. I learned their stories, and after 9 months living in Rwanda, I flew back to New York. I wrote a letter to my boss, say, hey boss, I think I'm leaving. I'm not doing what I was created for. That's when Mondi Initiative was born. Refugees continue to face structural exclusion from education, from opportunity, from decision-making tables, where their lives are discussed but their voices are missing. So this must change. It's up to us to kind of take the steps and decide what we can do. So, and this must change as well. So let's move beyond tokenism to true inclusion. Let's go from consultation to collaboration, from crisis response to long-term investment, from empathy to equity. And let's remember, refugee status is a legal designation, not an identity. We are not defined by what we fled, but what we bring on the table. And that's what Mondi Initiative and my fellow refugee-led organization are doing. So today, I invite all of us to recommit to a world where no human being is illegal, where forced displacement is no longer a destiny, and where every refugee is seen not as a victim of circumstances, but a custodian of possibility. I leave you with the world born of my journey. We may have been uprooted, but we are not undone. We may have been silenced, but we are not voiceless. We are still here, and we are still rising, and that's our mission. Thank you. Murakoze cyane.
Following the opening remarks, attention shifted to panel discussions tackling the most pressing questions around refugee inclusions, financial access, and long-term resilience. Experts and practitioners unpacked both the challenges and the solutions shaping the future.
I think there are a number of factors that we could look at, but I'll just stick to 3 of them. Yeah. One is when Ingomoko was starting, it was really built on a foundation of a young person who had like great ambitions for themselves and for the community, but then they didn't have the means to that. So that was the trigger of starting this work, and we always go back to that, like the bit of understanding why we do what we do. So tying the why we do what we do, but also with the why of the specific individuals we work with. And how that works is we understand not just refugees, for everyone, there's need for improved livelihoods and even self-reliancy. Yeah. But behind that is the aspect of individual dreams, ambitions, what each person wants to achieve. So our model has been in a way that we have trainings that we do in terms of enabling these entrepreneurs, start businesses, or those that are in businesses, but also have the individualized mentorship and coaching, which really addresses what the individual is trying to achieve. So I think being able to have that understanding of that combination of both the overall direction that you're heading to, but also the individual and what they're trying to achieve has really helped. I think so that's the why aspect. The second aspect is the aspect of community. For for Rwanda and the other countries that we work in, I think community is very important. For instance, today in Rwanda we have 212 staff. Out of those, 36 are refugee staff. Across the 5 countries that we operate in, we have over 100 staff that are refugees. And what that means is that when this work is being done, you really have people who understand the community in which they're working, the challenges that are in those communities. So it really builds the aspect of trust. It also helps to understand the actual problems that are being faced on ground as this work is done. So I think the aspect of community is very critical, not like serving from a distance, but really being able to be on ground. And I would end with, we provide trainings, business coaching and mentorship, or business advisory, whatever terminology we might use for that, and also provide access to finance. So we provide low-cost debt financing. But over the period, what we've seen is that is important, but now the ability to also connect these entrepreneurs with the overall ecosystem, so that whole economic inclusion is very critical. So some of the things that over the period we've also gone into is the aspect of market linkages and market systems and advocacy, and understanding that these are really viable markets. For instance, in the aspect of access to finance, we've seen over 97% debt repayment on the financing we've done. In Rwanda, we've invested over 15 billion Rwandan francs.
Can you say that again? Maybe they didn't hear. 97%. Can you say that again?
Yes, on the debt financing, over 97% repayment is what we've seen.
Yeah.
So I think the aspect of not looking at this as, we are supporting, we're trying to help, but really seeing these communities as viable, having viable businesses, and also whether it's in terms of the economic power, in terms of spending power, whether in terms of the workforce, like looking at that as viable, not just coming in to just help and then move on.
I believe from protection to prosperity is not only a theme for this panel, it's more of an action that is taking place in Rwanda. I believe as most of us in this room agree with me. The World Bank is working with the government of Rwanda to support this effort, moving from humanitarian aid to development and long-term approaches. A centerpiece of this support is the socio-economic inclusion of refugee and host community projects. This project is commonly known as Jambere, which means move forward. The project is a mix of financial instrument, credit and grant from the window for host community and refugees, the World Bank and the IDA 18. And also the project attracted a grant and partnership from Danida that contributed to construction of one of the health centers. These projects allocated a big chunk of the funding to infrastructures that support access to basic services. This is a mix of all sectors, health, education, water and sanitation, infrastructure like roads, markets, that really support refugees to be integrated in the national systems.
Refugee inclusion is very important. This is the reason we are working with the refugee readers at the camp level, these refugee-led organizations, to make sure that during even the development of this strategy, they contribute, they're part of it. We are not proposing things that maybe will not work considering the environment of work or the settings in refugee camps.
Yeah.
We've been able to include them at different levels, and we continue. Even when we start to implement, we make sure that before deciding, taking any decision, before investing, before organizing any fora to discuss with them, to bring skills and everything, we make sure we take into consideration their tech and their constellations. Yeah.
As UNHCR, the support we are to bring, not only even as a UNHCR, I would say as UN, because we are one agency within a family. So here the RC will certainly speak about that. It's really a whole of a society approach. And UN embed all those approaches with our different mandates. Trying to support the countries where we are called to support these sustainable development goals, the SDGs. I think UNHCR has an element within that, particularly regarding to refugees, which is our mandate, protecting them. We can support any nation that has this hospitable and generous policy. I think our role, when we embark into graduation, making sure that people can cover their own needs in a protracted situation where people have been there for 20, 25 years, 30 years, Monjan was saying so. I think our role there can be from three angles. Technically, we should be able to support that country. Financially, we should be able to support that country. And policy-wise. So technically, it is really what we have expertise to do. As UNHCR, but as the whole UN family, in terms of making sure that for a country to accompany a vulnerable population to graduate, we have a right data, for example, a good data system. In this case, refugee data system, we need to build it because somebody was talking about we need to know your population. How are you going to help them if you don't know who they are, where they are, what are their needs? Yeah. It's something that we need to support the government in doing so. And here in Rwanda, it's taking place through MINEMA, through DGIE. We have the data. We have the data to do that. Another element that we can also do is making sure that we participate in the capacity building of local actors when it comes to refugee protection, when it comes to making sure that we assess those needs in an accurate manner. Another element that we do technically is also supporting to create these local markets that we talked about. How do they manage to get to local markets? Yeah. Another element also is technically the evaluation of the progress that we are making. I think that's one element that we need also to support them. Financially, it's more resource mobilization. How do we work together with development actors that are in the room here, with the international community to avail those fundings to the countries that have these progressive policies in order to be able to cover these needs. I think that all these elements, when it comes to World Bank has already talked about what they are doing. The donor community is presented here. We are there to help those countries to mobilize this international community to bring the funding and develop much more strategic partnership. Because we saw it here, what are the needs, the budget that was there. There are different streams and different needs that are there for us to make sure that people can go, can become self-sufficient. And then policy-wise, which is how do we accompany, how do we advocate to make sure that the policies are progressive, we have a conducive environment in doing so, and also how are the policies aligned with what we are trying to achieve. I think we mentioned here that this fits into the NST2. All the aspirations of the government for its own citizens, we see also the refugees having a place, having a room for also aspiring to this social protection. The PS mentioned that. We can also access to, as I say again, to labor market. And the other thing that also we can do is really to showcase, as I said, to showcase that in this country it's happening. How can we scale it?
Yes.
Within the region, just to start with? Because you go to other countries where refugees do not have that opportunity. They can't work, they don't have access to so many things, basic ones like education, access to finance. They can't just work. They have to, their dependency is much higher than when you sit in a country where the policy gives you identity, ID card, documentation, give you access to open bank accounts, give you access to go to school to enhance your skills, and also give you possibility to work in that country. So I think that those are the supports that we do as UNHCR, as UN family, in terms of advocacy for the policies to continue being progressive, to be aligned with what the countries are doing, to make sure that refugees are not marginalized. Technically, the expertise that we have in our different field of expertise, we also make sure that we bring that to the level of the local actors so that they take ownership into this, but also to continue mobilizing funding because it requires funds to do that.
Yeah. We have very innovative programs, amazing programs within the refugee communities. But because of the funding we have, we end up doing very small bits of what could have actually made a big difference. I have seen a lot of partners in this room today. I hope that that is something that they can consider. That small funding, while it is important to pilot, I think in Rwanda we are at the point where we need to scale up. And we are looking at these partners in the room today and many others to avail funding that can help us to really scale up the interventions that we have.
Away from the main stage, voices from across the event offered deeper insights, sharing personal reflections, lived experiences, and what this day truly meant for those driving change.
As the UN Migration Agency, we work hand in hand with partners on all three durable solutions. So, for example, resettlement, the importance of allowing those that have been forced to flee, largely due to reasons of persecution, etc., they cannot return home, that they can be resettled into a third country. So we work very closely with UNHCR on ensuring that they can make that journey in a safe and orderly way to a third country. The second issue, which was also raised today, was the importance of voluntary repatriation. When the situation in their home country has changed, it is safe for them to return, that we can also support that. And we welcome the fact that, the government of Rwanda also supports voluntary repatriation. And the third, of course, is the main theme of today, which is about community integration. When it's not possible for that refugee to go home, or then we need to look, or to be resettled elsewhere, then we look at the other options. And this is increasingly important in today's context, where unfortunately we do have less borders, for example, that are more open to taking in people that are forced to flee. So we need to look at, can they settle in the country that they've been hosted, and in this case in Rwanda. So it's working with the government, with the development partners, on how do we make that happen.
I'm from Congo, grew up in Rwanda, went to school in America, and here in Rwanda I was a beneficiary, one of the beneficiaries of the world for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, but now I'm giving back. I take my money, the money I made, and give back to my community. I think what I can say, we're here today to celebrate the resilience, courage, and also for refugees. Once these people are given opportunity, I think they have a lot of potential to give back and contribute to the development and also growth of host community.
Now we have the story of the young man who left here, went to the United States, got his PhD, is investing in refugee communities. If you go to Kirehe, you have a restaurant owned by a refugee that offers top-class food. So from being in the creative industry, in sports, in the economy, in IT, they are all over the place. And then you look globally. If you look globally, some of the best-known athletes, footballers, whether they are basketballers or soccer players, all grew up as refugees and relocated to third countries, and now they are playing for those third countries. So there's a lot we can celebrate about what refugees bring. What is needed is a mindset change, that they are not dependent on our goodwill. As the saying, went today, they don't need our help, they need the future. Can we help them construct that future? That's our role as a global community. And our work as a United Nations system is to work with our host governments, our partner governments, civil society, other development partners, to try to make this transformation in the lives of refugees and migrants and displaced persons come forward.
Refugee stories are not only about survival, they're about innovation, strength, and hope. The future we want can only be achieved if everyone's potential is recognized and unlocked. As we end today's edition of In Focus right here on EAMG TV, make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms. My name is Amanda Bahenda. Goodbye for now.
Taking some pictures and you're going to be saying before and after.
In Rwanda-Kazakhstan relations.
Your gateway to East Africa.